Hey guys, welcome back to T-Bones Tech. Today we're doing my stills comparison between the original Canon EOS R and the brand new Canon EOS R6. So again, this comparison is only for stills and not video. So the first thing we're going to talk about is price. The original Canon EOS R is actually a bargain, coming in at only $1,800. Originally, I believe its MSRP was around $2,300 or something like that, but now it's only $1,800. And the brand new Canon EOS RP body only is $2,500. So as of filming this video, there is $800 between these two cameras. Okay, so next up, let's talk about the sensors. The original Canon EOS R has a 30 megapixel full frame sensor, and the brand new Canon EOS R6 has a 20 megapixel full frame sensor. So right off the bat, you guys are probably expecting the original Canon EOS R to have sharper and better pictures because you have 10 more megapixels than you do on the Canon EOS R6. But the R6 actually has a little trick up its sleeve. It has no anti-aliasing filter. So the EOS R does have an anti-aliasing filter, and unfortunately that robs sharpness by around 30% or even more. The sensor on the EOS R is the same sensor found on the Canon 5D Mark IV, and the sensor found on the R6 is actually the same sensor found on Canon's 1DX Mark III, Canon's flagship camera. Make sure to watch this video to the end because I do some side-by-side stills comparisons between the original Canon EOS R and the R7. I filmed them in a studio environment, so the lighting and everything stays the exact same, and I also use all the exact same settings on these cameras. The only difference between both the pictures are going to be the actual sensors and the actual cameras that took the photos. So this will hopefully give you guys a real-world test of which camera is better and which camera is sharper as far as stills go. But of course, the camera sensor isn't everything there is in photography. There are other things that are extremely important, like autofocusing. Now, the original Canon EOS R features Canon's dual pixel autofocusing system, which is very good and advanced and great for video, but the R6 actually has Canon's dual pixel autofocus 2, the 2.0 version of it, and is much improved and very accurate and fast. And the R6 also has a very much improved eye detect AF, which is incredible for portraiture. It's absolutely incredible, and it's been working very, very good for me, much better than the system on the original EOS R. So I am very impressed with that, and that really helps me when taking portraits. Now, also, if you're filming sports and action photos, the original R has 8 frames per second, and the new R6 actually has 12, so much better here on the R6. Now, also, the EOS R has dual SD card slots, and this is crucial for wedding photographers or for any real professional photographer who can't afford to lose their photos. You have the redundancy with the 2 SD cards here on the R6, and unfortunately on the original R, we only have 1 SD card slot. But that's the key differences between both these two cameras. Now let's get into those high quality comparison shots. Okay, so now it's time for some sample pictures. The photos here to the left were shot with the original Canon EOS R, and the photos over here to the right were shot with the R6. So both these pictures were shot at ISO 100. The focal length was 50 millimeters, and our aperture was stopped down a little bit to f5.6 to try to get even sharpness across the board. I manually focused the lens on all these photos, so again, having a aperture lower at f5.6 is going to help me keep sharpness across the board in case I misfocus just a little bit. That's going to help buy me a little bit of extra room. But that being said, I did try my best to get them both tack sharp focus, and I focused over here on the camera part of the text. And again, original R to the left and R6 over here to the right. And as far as sharpness goes, both look very, very similar, which is actually pretty surprising because again, the original R has 30 megapixel sensor and the R6 only has a 20 megapixel sensor. Zooming in here, we can see the dust and look for some detail here. And here we can see it might look a little bit sharper here on the R6, but both are very, very similar. Honestly, you're really splitting hairs here. There really is not a big difference between these two photos as far as sharpness goes. Let's zoom into the bokeh here and take a look at the bokeh. And here we can see both are nice, but I think the noise here over here on the R6 is a little bit smoother and less grainy than it is over here to the left on the original R. Now let's go ahead and take a look at these pictures taken at ISO 400. Okay, so here are the pictures shot at ISO 400. Again, left is the original R and to the right is the R6, and you can actually see the make and model here in the middle right of the screen. I'm not sure if you guys can see that or not, but let's zoom in and take a look at sharpness here at ISO 400. And again, I'm not expecting a big difference or a difference really at all from ISO 100, but I figure we should do ISO 400 anyways, just to say that we did. And here we can see, again, very, very similar as far as sharpness goes and as far as detail goes. I think maybe the K here is a little bit sharper on the original R, and maybe the dust, again, is just a little bit sharper here here in some places, but overall it is very similar. And really, again, you're splitting hairs to really see any difference between both these two cameras. I think the AO looks a little bit sharper here to the right. And again, as far as noise go, I think the R6 has a little bit less noise than the original R has. Okay, so here we are at ISO 800. Let's go ahead and zoom in and check for sharpness here in the photo. And here again, both seem very similar. Actually, maybe the R6 is a little bit sharper and has a little bit more detail here in the corners. I think here at ISO 800 we can see some more detail here on the little rusty part of the camera. Moving over to the sunglasses here, again we can see both are very sharp. Again, I think the R6 is just a little bit sharper and is just a little bit higher quality with a little bit less noise than the original R is. Okay, so now we stopped up to ISO 1600. Let's zoom in and again check for sharpness and for noise. And here we can see both are very similar. Again, the R6, same story, seems to be just a little bit sharper here and still have a little bit less noise than the original R. Over here we can see there's definitely a lot more noise on the original R than there is on the R6. The R6 seems like it's producing more cleaner images. Let's zoom into the bokeh and check for sharpness here. And again, way less noise here on the R6 than on the original R. Okay, so we stopped up to ISO 3200, which is another full stop, and let's take a look here at our photo. Again, we'll zoom around and check for sharpness, and here we can see again both are very similar, but I definitely think the R6 is sharper than the R5 is. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below, which you think is sharper, if you guys catch anything that I'm missing as far as sharpness goes. But I do feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over and over again, and it seems like it's the same story across the board. But definitely as we stop up our ISO, we're seeing more and more noise here in the background on the original R than the R6. Okay, so now we stopped up to ISO 6400, and here, not even zoomed in all the way, we can tell there's definitely more noise here on the original R than there is on the R6, but zoom in anyways and see if we can amplify that noise. And here we definitely can see there's way more noise on the original R than there is the R6. We can see the R6 is definitely much sharper here at ISO 6400, and everything just looks a lot better here on the R, even at ISO 6400, which is a pretty fast aperture, but definitely nothing too crazy. Let's actually zoom in here to the corner and take a look at this hair, and here we can see it's definitely much sharper here on the R6 than it is on the original R. There's quite a big difference here as far as sharpness goes. Okay, so now we stopped up to ISO 12800, and here again we can see quite a big difference as far as sharpness goes. The R6 is definitely pulling away from the original R, and again, all settings are the exact same. I turned high speed noise reduction off on both these two cameras, but clearly the R6 is definitely much sharper at high ISOs and basically overall, and that's probably thanks to its anti-aliasing filter, and also because it's a 20 megapixel sensor instead of a 30 megapixel sensor. Every single pixel on that sensor is actually a little bit bigger, and because every pixel is a little bit bigger, it's going to absorb more light, and all that's going to help the camera make better decisions when taking the exposure. Look at the noise here, just a huge difference between the original R and the R6 here. Okay, so now we stopped up all the way to ISO 12600, and again, look at the sharpness difference here between the original R and the R6. It's not even close. The R6 is handling these high ISOs much better than the original R. It's not even close, and because of that, it's definitely producing sharper pictures. There is truly a huge difference between both these photos. There is now really a big difference between these two photos, with the R6 taking much higher quality photos than the R5. Okay, so now we stopped up all the way to ISO 21200, and I believe this is the first extended ISO on the original R, so it's not really a true comparison because the original R isn't actually really able to achieve these high ISOs. But with that being said, let's take a look at the extended ISO here on the original R and here on the R6. And here, wow, we can see a huge difference. There's just a ton of noise here on the original R, and here on the R6 where it's producing much sharper and much cleaner images. At this point, it's really not even close. The R6 is much sharper and much better than the original R is. It's really not even close. Even here in the text, the R6 is much sharper. Okay, and lastly we have ISO 102,400. That's not an ISO that I say often because it is such a huge number and I really never shoot in this. But here we can see both are pretty ugly. But again, the R6 is definitely much sharper even without zooming into it. If we do zoom into the photo, we can definitely see that the R6 is just so much sharper and almost usable. I wouldn't call these photo usable, but it's almost usable, where the R6, look at this grain, it's just terrible. And look at this little purple dot here. It's just really getting ugly on the R. But again, on the original R, this is an extended ISO, where here to the left on the R6, this is not an extended ISO, I don't believe. So overall, I'd say the R6 is definitely a far superior camera to the original R when it comes to still photography and especially low light photography. But I'm also very interested to see what you guys have to say. Did I miss anything with this comparison? You guys are seeing exactly what I'm seeing, so if I missed something, make sure to leave it in the comment section down below because I'd be interested to see if you guys picked up something that I didn't. Well, that's all I got for you guys in this video. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure to give me a big thumbs up down below. And of course, make sure to subscribe button if you don't want to miss any new videos that I release to the YouTube channel just like this one. Again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.